Hey traders, checking in on the cryptocurrency space. So we've had some bull breaks on the daily time frame, but unfortunately for the bulls, there are definitely red flags that we need to highlight and be aware of. There are altcoins that are seeing a lot more strength than Bitcoin itself, but we know we need Big Daddy Bitcoin to join the fun if we're going to have confidence as a sector. So first, the good news for bulls. First things, we got the dollar rejecting from resistance and heading down to test support. And if the dollar breaks 95.85, we will lose the daily higher lows. And those higher lows have been intact for a long time, ever since October 28th. So almost 2 entire months of daily higher lows are at risk of being lost. And that's a good sign for asset bulls. So keeping an eye on that. Broader market. S&P 500, 3-day V-shaped bounce. Saw a little bit of risk on. So risk on meaning bulls a little bit more willing to put money in the highest risk, highest reward places in the markets. And again, for me, it's IWM, cryptocurrency, and cannabis. So IWM, 3-day bull move. Cannabis name seeing a little bit of a bounce. Yesterday was a big green day. For CGC, it doesn't look that big, but that was a 10% green day. So we saw bounces in those names, and we saw bounces in the cryptocurrency space. So the broader market is doing what the bulls want to see. That being said, we're seeing a little bit of relative weakness because we can see today the S&P 500 has another big green day, and we look at Bitcoin, and yes, we had a big green day yesterday with SPY, but today we're starting to lag behind. We're not getting any follow through. When we break resistances, whether it's an equilibrium, generally in an equilibrium, you take out one level, that's great, but you have to take out the resistances behind it. So we double bottomed down at 45.5 thousand. We broke daily lower high resistance for the first time in a long time. We broke 48.4. That was notable. That was the first, okay, pay attention, bulls. Let's get this weekly bounce going. But we did not break any of the other levels at this point. 49.5, we double topped at that level by less than $100. And then behind it, 50.8. So again, the best case scenario would have been multiple green days taking out multiple resistance levels, because then there's no doubt. There's extreme confidence and there's conviction for bears to cover, because we want to be forcing bears to cover. And if we had made a bull move real quick over 52,000, we would instantly see multiple weeks of bears underwater. Because we only took out one resistance level, we've only got 1 week of bears potentially underwater. So at this point, it's not convincing. And again, the last thing you want to see is a daily bull break straight into consolidation. 4-hour perspective is a bit of a head and shoulders. Let's zoom in a little bit. This is the 2-hour time frame, but essentially it was a left shoulder, there's our head, and there's our right shoulder. The 4-hour uptrend is at risk of being lost. If we drop down and break 48.3, further 12-hour. If we break 48.3, I go to the 12-hour time frame for clarity, and I scout a 12-hour higher low, anything above 45.5. So again, it's not game over for the bulls, but we have to be cautious because the bulls can still confirm a 12-hour trend change and start to see that follow through. This move did come straight off that low, and we were a bit extended by the time we started encountering these resistances. And we were already up over 8% before we got to those resistances. So again, it's important to check all our time frames and see this, because if we had come from a daily higher low, let's say we had topped out at resistance, formed a higher low at 47,000, and then broke resistances, that's a lot less significant of a move that the bulls have to follow through with. But because we went all the way back down to the low, by the time we even broke resistance, we were already up something like 6% or so. So we can make some excuses for the bulls. Again, we don't want to constantly be making excuses for the other direction in terms of, I won't say manipulation, but that just flashed into my head, a pet peeve where people will talk about manipulation, which really means the trade went against me and I don't want to blame myself, so I'm going to blame this unforeseen force of manipulation. But we can make an excuse for bulls saying, okay, we were up 6% before we even encountered resistance. We broke one level. We were then up 8% when we encountered the second resistance level, and bulls were a bit tired. We have to see healthy retracement on the 12-hour, ideally holding 382, ideally holding 48,000, and then continuation. We have to confirm a 12-hour trend change to the bulls. So that would be shaping up probably over the weekend. We got one more trading day in the stock market, and then we got 3 trading days in crypto where stocks are not going to be a factor. So it's still possible that bulls can save it here, but they need this 12-hour higher low. Dominance chart not doing anything, no information there. Let's skip it. So Ethereum is the same thing. Ethereum broke resistance at 40.4, which is an equilibrium bull break, but we did not break the second level at 4,116. And again, it's a little bit of the same scenario where we were just extended. By the time we broke resistance, we were up almost 8%. By the time we get to the second resistance level, we're up over 9%. And here on the 12-hour perspective, it's a little bit different of a look, but we are scouting a 12-hour higher low to see if these bulls can follow through. I made an entry attempt because right now the only exposure I had was SOL and ADA swing positions. And because they're swing positions, they're a little bit smaller. We'll go over those as we get to them. But I wanted a bit more exposure because Bitcoin and Ethereum just broke tightening ranges bullish, and I did not have as much exposure as I would want if the weekly bounces get underway. Because again, we're looking for weekly bounces for this that's what this entire setup is about. We've been pulling back now for 6 weeks in a row, and we are looking for a bounce to look for a weekly lower high. And if you look at some of our other names that we've been watching that have been similar, gold has its weekly bounce underway. IWM has its weekly bounce just getting going. So we're watching, can crypto do the same thing? Because the pullbacks have been so similar. So with that, I was looking for an entry on Ethereum. And I said, okay, well, I missed the breakout. I'm waiting for the next 4-hour higher low. And I then saw this pullback of 4-hour consolidation, and I went and chose an aggressive spot to make an entry. And the aggressive spot that I chose was based off of a 15-minute clear level. I'm confusing myself here. We were back at December 21st, 7 a.m. So it was here. This was the consolidation. This was a big enough 15-minute bounce where I said, okay, if this is going to be a 4-hour bull flag, and if this daily move is going to see significant follow through, we're probably going to set a quick higher low and then look for continuation. So I saw a big enough 15-minute bounce where I then entered on this higher low. So my entry was right at about 39.80, and I would have scaled in a couple more orders on that 4-hour consolidation. Because the bounce started right after that, and the position was pretty much green the entire time, I then said, okay, well, that's my anti-FOMO position. And if we keep running from here, I've got more exposure, and that's good. And once we got to a certain point, I said, I'm just sticking my stop at break even. Because if we were to head back down to that supposed 4-hour bull flag and stop me out at break even, that's a red flag. That means we did not see the 4-hour bull flag follow through that I would have wanted to have seen to be comfortable. So this morning I stopped out of Ethereum, pretty much break even, probably paid some fees, which is fine, just tiny little loss, no big deal whatsoever. And so now I'm back to patient because I got the red flag. The red flag is we went back and broke 4-hour support. So now I'm on the 4-hour time frame, and I'm watching Bitcoin very closely to see if Bitcoin can shape up a 12-hour higher low. ETH BTC also gave some red flags. I was looking for ETH BTC to bounce. That's why I chose Ethereum for that 4-hour bull flag entry as opposed to Bitcoin. I was looking for ETH BTC to bounce here, and it did, but insignificantly, and then dropped to a lower low. So now this ETH BTC chart on the 2-day time frame is tightening up. We've got our high, low, lower high, and bulls really need to hold this low of 783 if they're going to keep a weekly bull flag possible. And right now, a weekly bull flag is still possible, but we need to hold that level. So I went from anti-FOMO position back to patient. And I don't know which name I will look to enter for a 12-hour higher low. I am looking for a 12-hour higher low entry, but I have to see what the pairings look like at that point in time. One more look at Bitcoin here. So 12-hour consolidation is only just beginning. And we haven't confirmed our 4-hour head and shoulders yet, 2-hour head and shoulders, whatever you want to call it. So essentially, I'm just waiting to see, does 48.3 break or not? And if it does, at that point, I'm waiting for hourly oversold. So 48.3 breaks, hourly oversold, will be what I'm looking for. Sol, so Sol is a really nice clear pattern. 12-hour time frame. We've got our triple top now. Well, not a triple top, double bottom, and we are rejecting from resistance. So we headed up to resistance. We failed to break it by 1%, and now we're pulling back within our range. We're going to look for a 12-hour high or low compared to 168. I'm probably going to go aggressive here because right now I'm in a swing size position that is risk-free, and I can double my position size. If we pull back here and drop down, let's just say to 175, I can double my position size. And if I have a break even of roughly 145, 175, we're looking at 160. So I could double my position at 175 and place a stop loss under 168. If we bear break, definitely a red flag for this setup, and I stop out and I don't lose a dollar. And if we bull break, then I'm in a more aggressive position and I'm benefiting in a big way. So that's on the table for me as well. I have not made any firm decisions on all this. This is me establishing my game plan live, essentially. So 4-hour perspective on Sol, just looking for a higher low, but aware of the 12-hour clear equilibrium and keeping a close eye on that time frame. Sol BTC, daily trend change is needed. We set the higher low, and we're not following through to confirm that trend change. 4-hour consolidation underway, so keeping an eye on that as well. Definitely don't want to see that lower high and lower low. That could potentially be a reason that I don't go aggressive on Sol USD for a 12-hour high or low. ADA USD finally got our bull break with a bit of follow through. So again, I entered this position a little bit early, but I liked the base down in the 118s, 117s, and we have broken some short-term resistance levels, but just like Bitcoin and Ethereum, we took out the 133 double top. We did not take out the next level of 142. But the bulls have plenty of space to work with. A lot of space for that 4-hour high or low. Still comfortable. And again, the swing positions that I'm in, I do have comfortable profit. I think my entry here was 126s. Not extremely profitable, but enough to be comfortable. And this is a double top on ADA BTC that we need to see break with a 4-hour bull flag ideally into continuation. I'm liking the possible setup here. If Bitcoin gives us a 12-hour high or low fairly shortly, and we see ADA, both pairings give us 4-hour higher lows very shortly, we're positioned well for another leg up here. Luna, big upper wicket profit taking. It looks like a climax. It looks like it's time for daily consolidation. That being said, we do still have 4-hour EMA 12 support and a ton of space to maintain a 4-hour uptrend. So right now there are some bulls, myself included, looking for a short-term bounce. And I made an initial entry here. I'm trading W Luna on Coinbase, but essentially I was looking for a 15-minute oversold conditions. I made an initial entry, I forget where, 89, low 89s, I believe. Very small starter position. It's my first time trading this coin, so even smaller than normal. And then we just slow grinded down. As you know, when I'm playing oversold bounces, my aggressiveness matches the bears. If we're flushing, I'm getting aggressive. If we're grinding down, bears aren't that aggressive, I'm not going aggressive either because I know that those tiny little bounces are cooling off RSI levels. The reason I made my initial entry is the 5-minute RSI was in the low 20s and the 15-minute RSI was just getting oversold. So I made my entry and then we saw a 5-minute lower high cool off RSI and then another leg down. So at this point, it's looking like it's probably going to be a very insignificant trade for me, meaning I'm not doing much of anything. I'm in a tiny position. And I'm going to be looking for, any kind of hourly bounce here. I'll be looking to exit. And whether I exit for a small loss or small win, it's going to be insignificant. It's essentially me giving up on the trade and saying this is not the setup that I'm looking for in terms of looking for the 4-hour high or low. Aggressive bears are going to wait for the 4-hour high or low to be set. And they're going to then scout a 4-hour lower high bearish entry. Look at the 15-minute that marked the top. Significant enough consolidation to scout the lower high for the top fish, and then we rolled over. Granted, you could have said, well, this was significant as well, and it didn't mark the top, but that was only a $2 pullback, and this was, well, not much more. But a lot of space for a 4-hour lower high. And Luna BTC, do we have any clues? No, it's doing the same thing. 4-hour EMA 12 support, trying to hold. 15-minute, trying to get an oversold bounce going. We did just hold that low. Did the US dollar pairing hold the low? It dropped to a lower low. So a slight little bullish clue in Luna BTC. But we have to see Luna USDT get over 89.44 if that bounce is going to follow through at all. But again, I'm probably not going to add anything. And insignificant trade for me. ENS, want to keep an eye on this one. And again, this is an airdrop. And this is just, I've been keeping an eye on it just because I was trading it a little bit with that airdrop. And I am all out of the position at this point. But some nice free money I was not expecting. So 12-hour downtrend here. Downtrend resistance line, downtrend support line. Why I'm keeping an eye on it is because the all-time lows here with very little price history, we got this base forming, 38, 39, 39, 37, 37. So just a base of support trying to be established. And what I would like to see is this daily equilibrium continue to tighten. So we got the low, high of the bounce at 48. And this is a very wide range, so there's definitely significant gains in there. And we double bottomed, and now anything under 48 is just a lower high. So what I would like to see is a failure to break 48. A failure to break 48, and then I look for a 12-hour high or low playing off of 37.13. So I see all these kinds of setups that I'm looking for on 12-hour consolidation, and it's just a question I have to ask myself, how aggressive do I want to be here going into the holiday weekend? Do I want to be looking at the charts and the screen a lot, or do I want time off? That's an important question as well. So I don't have the answer yet. I know I'm in a couple comfortable swing positions. If this is the start of a weekly bounce, I definitely want more exposure, which is why I'm keeping an eye on the Bitcoin 12-hour high or low, and I will probably play altcoins instead of Bitcoin itself just because so many names have been seeing so much more upside than Bitcoin has. And one thing that's been a good sign for the bulls is, again, risk on has been returning to the cryptocurrency space. If you look over the last 3 days, there's coins that are up 10, 20, 30% fairly easily. And you can see it's a nice sea of green here for the most part. And what we were seeing is, SHIB was up, or Matic is up 10%, and SHIB's only up 5%, and then SHIB's up 10%, and then OMG rips 5% higher, and then Ripple rips 5%. So we're seeing the profits rotating around, and we're seeing the laggards get some love, and then the leaders. So that's a good sign. That's what we want to see in the cryptocurrency space. But again, we have to see Bitcoin leading the way to a certain degree. It can trade sideways and let altcoins do their thing and be more bullish, but we can't lose ground. We need this 12-hour higher low and higher high on Bitcoin. We need to break the wall at 49.5, 49.6, and 52K will then be the big one after that. But if we can't change this 12-hour trend on Bitcoin, it's going to be a major red flag in the short term. So that is what is required for the bulls, and aggressive alt bulls are watching this 12-hour Bitcoin consolidation, and they're planning. I don't know why I updated everything. Trading views like him to do this to me these days. But what altcoin bulls are doing is using Bitcoin 12-hour consolidation to help time their entries on these altcoins. The big question we have right now, to summarize in the short term, are we going to break 48.3 thousand? If we do, we're going to be a bit more patient. If we hold it, then it's a potential 12-hour bull flag. It's going to get exciting. It's going to be a nice holiday weekend of information. And let's see if this strength can continue. Feel free to ask any questions. Do good things. Happy holidays. I'll probably make a video over the weekend. Who are we kidding? See you then. Hey everyone, for this chapter, what are we on? 11 something. We're heading over south. So just curled around, pretty much entered the middle of the state, Colorado, from the east. Went through Boulder, went through Rocky Mountain National Park, went over into Aspen area, and then curled down into the south into Durango. And this is a little colorful rainbow lizard guy on his way. So I went to Mesa Verde National Park, which is a beautiful spot. And you can see how the landscape has changed from the giant mountains into more of a arid, deserty kind of feel. They've got Great Sand Dunes National Park down in this area of the state as well. But this is the area where they built right into the cliffside walls thousands of years ago. And these tribes are so fascinating with what they did. the soft sandstone. You can see where their holds were as they would climb in and out of these valleys. And they would use them for, I should say, in and out of these, the side of these cliffs. They used them obviously for protection, and they had some really cool construction that's still around these days. And the petroglyphs are everywhere. And petroglyphs are really everywhere in the southwest part of the country, as well as the middle of the country here in Colorado. And it's really cool to just see, to stand literally where someone stood thousands of years ago and drew something that they felt was important enough to try and have it etched into time. And in a lot of instances, there's these common themes, like these swirls. We'll look at some more that I went to in Utah, but there's so many places where you can literally just, drive on a dirt road up to these petroglyphs and check them out with, no fees, no tours, none of that. They're just right there, which exposes them to, graffiti or whatever. But fortunately, some of them are left alone, but a lot of cool different swirl things. We can only speculate as to what they were trying to show. And another cool thing that this tribe of Native Americans did was they pretty much selected seeds, genetic modification in a more natural way, not, splicing genes and stuff, but they would save seeds from certain strains of grass, and they created corn out of a strain of grass. So this is what it looks like in terms of, the valley that they were inside of on the sides of the cliffs. But they would take these strains of grass and save the seeds for the ones that had the biggest, seeds. And then just over thousands of years, they ended up with a crop that had a head of fat corn. And it doesn't look like the corn that we have today, obviously, because that's just using further science to get it to the point where we want it. But a lesser degree, they were using genetic modification and seed selecting to create a crop. So, quickie chapter here. We're going to head on over to Telluride next. I love Telluride. Ended up impromptu stopping at a music festival, the Ride, that they have every year, and met someone through couch surfing. I've never stayed at anybody's place during couch surfing, but got some great tips on volunteering at this music festival and a place on where to camp for free right outside of town. And that was a wonderful, again, just another unexpected stop. It seems like the highlights of my entire trip were all ones that I didn't plan and were all from word of mouth from other people who knew better than I. So we'll head on down there and again, check out Colorado and Utah. Great two states right next to each other. You can make it, a week or two road trip and get a lot of sightseeing. I mean, you could really make it a 2-month road trip if you wanted to, but those two states together, just the fact that they're next to each other and there's so many national parks within a pretty close radius, I would suggest it. So we'll check back in. Hope you have a good rest of your day. See you soon.